What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 144 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Friday, February 27, 2026. I'm your host, Zach Mallow. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of basketball as the New York Knicks are in action this evening. They're out in Milwaukee at Fiserv Forum taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. An 8 o'clock start, and the Knicks come into this game as 8.5 point favorites, total sitting at 217.5. Biggest story coming in, Giannis Antetokounmpo will not play for Milwaukee in this game. Still dealing with that right calf strain that he dealt with for over a month now. I think when you look at this game for the Knicks, it's a bounce back opportunity after a rough loss a couple of nights ago against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where they only put 94 points up on the board against a Milwaukee team that has been pretty hot lately and is coming off of a win the next night against the Cleveland Cavaliers, 118-116. A lot of guys did not play in that game for the Cleveland Cavaliers. However, Milwaukee's still finding ways to win, and they sit at 26-31 on the season. If you're looking at it from the Knicks side, it has to be through Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. Jalen Brunson, who had a solid night the other night, 20 points, but did not shoot the ball well. Karl-Anthony Towns had a solid night himself in terms of his shooting percentage and shooting from the field. However, he was absolutely invisible when it came to the second half. Nowhere to be found, and that's really when Cleveland did all their damage and pulled away for that 15-point victory. The Knicks have to come out strong in this game against the Bucks, a Bucks team without Giannis, of course. But I think really when you look at this game, the Knicks have a lot of noise around them right now of the fan base not too happy. They lose a game against Cleveland where it really shakes a lot of the optimism for this Knicks team later down the road. Knicks have lost some crucial games against good teams recently, especially with the Detroit Pistons taking 3-0 against the Knicks during this season series. Cleveland grabs a win in Cleveland a couple nights ago where it was complete domination during that second half. But I think you're looking at this Knicks team and you're saying 37-22 record. They're third right now in the Eastern Conference. What is all the chaos about? One, that's New York for you. But the second part of it, they got a tough stretch coming up. They got some tough opponents in the next 5-6 games or so. When you look at, of course, after this Milwaukee game that they should handle, you got San Antonio on Sunday, the Raptors and the Thunder next week on a back-to-back. And then following that, you have Denver on the road and Los Angeles, the Lakers on the road. So that's going to be a very tough stretch for this Knicks team, and they have to really settle things down in terms of their fan base getting a little antsy just before the playoffs are about to start in just over a month. So I think when you look at it, this is a huge game for the New York Knicks coming down to it tonight, an 8 o'clock start. The Knicks have to win this game pretty handily, and everything will settle itself out for the next 5 games after that when they face some very tough opponents in the NBA. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in tonight, an 8 o'clock start out in Milwaukee as the Knicks take on the Milwaukee Bucks at Fiserv Forum. Let's shift things to the world of college basketball, staying in basketball terms, but the St. John's Red Storm took on the UConn Huskies the other night, and when you talk about a basketball game, it was not much of that in terms of what St. John's was able to do. They got absolutely dusted in this game. 72-40 the final. Number 15 ranked St. John's going on the road. Very hostile environment out in Hartford against the number 6 UConn Huskies. And UConn handled this one from start to finish. I think a lot of this game came down to St. John's inability to shoot the ball. They only shot 20% from the field, 25% from three-point land. Just not good enough shooting-wise from St. John's, and it's almost a one-off game, you would hope, for this St. John's team. However, this is a St. John's team that has struggled at points throughout the season. They will go on a cold spell and not score for 5, 6, 7 minutes. And that's going to hurt them when it comes to March, when they face off against very tough opponents. It definitely hurt them in this game. UConn just completely took over, did not shoot the ball well on their side, 47%, but 28% from beyond the arc. They did handle the rebounding category. St. John's just could not get anything going, even in the paint. Only 12 of their 40 points came in the paint for this one. Just a astonishing number when you look at the bigs on St. John's and the work that they put in every single game. Zuby Ejiofor, Bryce Hopkins, Dylan Mitchell. That's an argument for one of the top front lines in the entire country. And those guys combined for 14 points of the 40 that St. John's had on the day. Just remarkable stuff. You really just can't make it up in terms of what St. John's had been able to do the previous 13 games, their longest win streak in a very long time. And it's completely erased by this UConn win, 72-40. On the other side, Terrence Reed Jr. really had his payback against Zuby Ejiofor in this one. 20 points, 9 of 14 shooting, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and how about it? 6 blocks for Tyrus Reed Jr. in this game. Made a statement against a Big East rival, and I think UConn's going to take a lot of confidence after this game. St. John's is going to press the reset button because they have to do so quickly, number one. And number two, this is just a horrible game that Rick Pitino, you think he's not sitting in practice, just telling guys everything that they did wrong, sitting in the film room, just going through every bit of this film from this 32-point loss and telling them exactly what not to do in terms of their shooting. I think that's really what it comes down to for St. John's as they head into a very tough game tomorrow night, an 8 o'clock start as the Johnnies return to Madison Square Garden to host the Villanova Wildcats. 8 o'clock start, like I said. It's the Johnnies who come into this game as 5.5-point favorites, total sitting at 144.5. St. John's still number 15 in the country, 22-6 on the year. But on the other side, Villanova, 22-6 on the year as well. They're 13-4 in the Big East Conference. This is a huge game for St. John's as well, considering that they are still in the race, very much in the race, for a share of the Big East title. They do have one more game to play than UConn does. UConn only has 2 games left, Seton Hall and Marquette on their calendar. St. John's has Villanova this weekend. They also have Georgetown and Seton Hall to finish things up for the regular season. St. John's has to handle business, win their games. They get a share of the Big East title. Of course, the tiebreaker, we'll see how that works in terms of the Big East tournament. Right now, St. John's has to focus on themselves, bounce back after that very rough showing in Hartford a couple of days ago. You look back to the last game that these two teams played, St. John's and Nova. It was just over a month ago, January 17th, down in Philadelphia, where the St. John's Red Storm won 86-79. I think when you look at that game, the biggest storyline was St. John's ability to dominate the paint, something that they were not able to do a couple of nights ago against UConn. You look at this game on January 17th, 42 points in the paint to just 22 for Villanova. Really settle things down, get the ball to your bigs, allow them to go to work. They had 12 offensive rebounds in that game, and the thing that hurt Villanova, they shot the ball pretty well in terms of 11 threes in the game, really caught up in the game, but 14 turnovers. You're not going to win any game against St. John's when you have 14 turnovers because St. John's feasts on that 17 points off of the 14 turnovers that Nova had in this game. So it's going to be a big one. You look at it at MSG, an 8 o'clock start. Make sure you tune in. And as St. John's looks to bounce back after a horrible couple of days, thinking about that game out in Hartford, a chance to redeem themselves right now. 8 o'clock start tomorrow. Nova taking on St. John's at the Garden. Let's finish things off today in the world of football as a rare sighting on February 27th, but the New York Jets have made a trade, a player-for-player trade. They send pass rusher Jermaine Johnson to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat, a trade that cannot be processed until the start of the league year on March 11th. But the Jets get their business done early while at the NFL Combine it marks the end of this defense and the era for this Jets defense. Sauce Gardner out the door, Quinnen Williams at the door, and then you add Jermaine Johnson to the list. Both former first-round picks for the Jets, but you look at the Jets overall, 8 of the Jets' 11 first-round picks from 2015 to 2022 have all been traded. Jermaine Johnson was just the next guy to go. I think it's a good trade in terms of the Tennessee Titans and what they're looking to do. Of course, Robert Saleh was in charge as the Jets head coach when the Jets drafted Jermaine Johnson with the 26th overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. So you get to pair Johnson as well as Saleh back together down in Tennessee. Good sign for them. And the Jets almost move on from Jermaine Johnson, don't have to pay as much money as Jermaine Johnson was getting a load of money after he was a first-round pick, of course. But you look at T'Vondre Sweat, a 6'2", 366-pound interior lineman, a second-round pick in 2024. He's signed through 2027, but he only counts for $1.7 million on the Jets salary cap. So that's something that the Jets are looking for. Of course, they added to this defense throughout. They, of course, got new coaches on the defensive side. So this is going to really fit into that base 3-4 formation that the Jets are going to be playing a lot this season, especially with a new defensive mind and a new defensive coordinator. T'Vondre Sweat is going to have a solid impact on the inside for this Jets team. Only 3 sacks in 29 games for the Titans, but posted 85 tackles, and you're going to pair him next to Harrison Phillips, Jawan Briggs, 2 guys who really had a solid season, both of them a season ago. That's what you're looking for with this new look Jets defense. So an interesting trade, especially before the start of the league year on March 11th. But the Jets get their business done early while at the NFL Combine. Jermaine Johnson, just the latest guy to go. It really started off strong for him with 7.5 sacks, his career high in 2023. But since that torn Achilles in Week 2, 2024, of course, against the Tennessee Titans, he has just not been the same player. A very down year for Jermaine last year. Sad to see him go from this Jets organization, a guy who really put it all out there each and every game. But the Jets move on and get T'Vondre Sweat to come in and be a third defensive tackle for this Jets defense in this upcoming season. But that will do it for episode 144 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Tuesday.